Hi, welcome to week 7 of the Sun Sermon Series and Small Group Lesson Series. I hope these lessons are really a huge aid in your transformation as you seek to become more like Christ. Just a little reminder of what we're doing. We're looking through the book of Mark at certain passages where he's referred to as the Son of God, or the Son of David, or the Son of Man. We're really digging into these passages to find out how they can kind of press us toward becoming more like Christ. So this week we're looking at this topic of betrayal. And betrayal, the whole idea comes from Mark chapters 8, 9, and 10, where Jesus kind of predicts, he foretells his impending doom, his betrayal and ultimate crucifixion. And then in Mark chapter 14 is where it all kind of unfolds. Judas goes to the religious leaders and he makes a deal to hand Jesus over to them. And then we see also in chapter 14 that Judas actually does hand Jesus over to the religious leaders so they can try him and ultimately have him crucified. And that whole idea of betrayal, there's a whole lot of betrayal actually going on in Mark chapter 14. But the whole idea, I just want to kind of relay a couple of stories that I think about when I think of betrayal. The first of these stories is from 1919. Some of you may be familiar with this, some of you not. But in 1919, the Chicago White Sox were in the World Series. It's Major League Baseball, for those of you guys who have no clue. They're in the World Series. This is the championship. It's, best 4 out of 7, I believe, series. And some of the players had become kind of begrudged against their owner, Charles Comiskey, because he wasn't paying them enough. And so what they did is they struck a deal with these gamblers that they would lose the World Series on purpose so these gamblers could bet on them, make a huge amount of money, or bet against them and make a huge amount of money, and then they would give them a little cut of the money. So it's their way of making a little bit more money. And so they go through the World Series, and they actually, about halfway through, some of the players got kind of remorseful and they started actually playing well, and they were winning. But they ended up losing the World Series, and few of the players made a lot of money. But in order to do that, you think about that. They betrayed their other teammates. They betrayed their fans. They let all kinds of people down. And the reason that I bring that story up is because you really have to count the cost when you're going to do something like that on purpose. Sometimes we betray people unintentionally. But man, to actually do something like this on purpose, you think about Judas. He had an agenda in handing Jesus over. Now, we read in the other Gospels that ultimately he, kind of had remorse about what he had done. He knew he had betrayed innocent blood, and he ended up giving the money back to the religious leaders that they had given him for handing Jesus over. But this whole idea of what's going on, it's, the ridiculous amount of just gall that it takes to betray someone. And I think we're to learn from that, not to be like that. But another story, or maybe it's just an illustration, not an actual story. But have you ever been sold something, and just a few weeks down the road you realize you've been really sold a bill of goods? You bought a piece of junk, and maybe it was someone close to you, maybe not, that you bought this from, and you just feel like you've been betrayed. You feel like you've been lied to, and you've spent a whole bunch of money on this thing that is not what was promised. And I think oftentimes our reaction in those instances is to blame whoever sold that thing to us, or blame whoever made it, or if we buy a lemon car, we want to blame somebody. But in those instances, it's our fault for spending the money and buying something, believing something without really understanding it. But there are times when people are going to betray us, whether it be on purpose or unintentionally. And we have to think about how we're going to respond. Jesus knew all of his disciples were going to betray him. But he kept on going. And he didn't break down and cry. He just kept on going. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to forgive people, not retaliate, Retaliation is the devil's work. But we need to learn to forgive people and just let it go. And I think that's really the crux of the message this week. Jesus knew he was going to be betrayed, and yet still, as he went to the cross, he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. He said, forgive them, Father. Think about that. The Lord and Savior of the world is forgiving people as he's being betrayed, as he's being crucified. That should be a huge lesson for us. Not only should we not betray other people, especially Christ, we should not be ashamed of him, but when we are betrayed, and we will be betrayed by someone in our lifetime, probably several times over, but there's no reason to retaliate. We should learn to forgive, let things go, and move on with life. Be Christ to people. Sometimes it means we got to pay a little bit, whether it be money or time or something else that we have to actually put up because we've been put out by someone. That's okay. It's okay. Life goes on, and we just need to learn to live with things. Betrayal hurts, but we can live with it. Thanks for watching this video, and this week really look at that. Think about the times you've been betrayed and see how you can learn to be like Christ when those situations happen again, because I guarantee you it will happen again. Maybe within this next week you'll be betrayed by someone, and you need to really think about how you're going to respond in those situations. Everybody have a great week in your small group, and really discuss this week, and look into the scriptures, and let's be more like Christ.